up, y'all? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Real Housewives of Orange County. This is season 19, episode 13. Okay, I know I'm late. Life has been lifing, okay? But two things. One, I'm really happy that Heather did not allow Tamra to gaslight her, because Tamra was trying her hardest and it was not working. And two, Gretchen needs to come to terms with, girl, you reignited the beef. You did it. Nobody else did it. Not Heather, not Emily, and not even Slade. You started it by bringing up this song. So there's that. But let's get into this review. So y'all know sometimes before we get into the review, we get a little spicy, just a little bit. And I just have three things I want to talk to y'all about. First up, John Jansen and Alexis Bellino really got married. And I am surprised, okay? Let's get into what People Magazine posted. It says, Alexis Bellino has tied the knot. The Real Housewives of Orange County alum married John Jansen at a whimsical rustic venue in Laguna Beach, California on Friday, October the 3rd. Truly the most magical day of our lives, Bellino tells People. And the reason why I'm shocked is I always felt like John only got with Alexis to like stick it to Shannon and to get clout off of Shannon and Alexis's back. I didn't mind John being in confessionals too much. I thought it was annoying to see him on the show during season 18, but when Alexis and John were doing interviews together, they did that Carlos King interview, the Bryce Sanders interview, and I think I saw him on like maybe one or two blog type channels and interviews. I was like, y'all are doing too much, because nobody would be talking to him if Alexis wasn't sitting beside him. And to be just doing these interviews, dogging out Shannon, it's like you're trying to get clout off of both these women's backs. And when Alexis got kicked off the show, I just assumed that he was either going to draw out the engagement or he was just going to kick her to the curb after the season had ended. But no. He really married this lady. I think her dress looks really pretty. It's sleek, it's sexy, but also very tasteful. And I feel like after you reach the age of 46 and you decide to get married, the ball gown dresses are not for you, ma'am. Not no more. You need to be wearing something sexy, sleek, and give us the vibe. Because I feel like when women mature, they get sexier. So yeah, kudos to them. Hope you sent Shannon a gift basket and a thank you card, because we know y'all wouldn't get married without that $70,000 she had to pay up that man. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about Katie and Tamra. So Tamra posted this picture and Katie reposted it in her Insta story. But pretty much it was a picture of them together saying, fancy seeing you here, hashtag RHOC. And then Katie posted this, reposted it, and with the song, Good as Gold. Here's the thing. Katie and Tamra being friends is just a strategic move on both ladies' part. They're allying themselves together, and that's just what it is, okay? Shouts out to Mr. California Steve, because you messaged me and sent me this YouTube video from Beyond the Velvet Rope, which is a YouTube channel on YouTube as well as a podcast. But also thank you to all you guys who at me to different things, like on Twitter or on Instagram and things of that nature, or even on TikTok. I may not always see it or acknowledge it, because sometimes I take breaks from social media and then I'll get back on and, start scrolling and looking at stuff. But I do appreciate you guys, wanting me to see the tea so we could talk about it and things of that nature. But I did look at this clip from Beyond the Velvet Rope. I don't really see much of their content. I used to see their content all the time when I was reviewing Real Housewives in New Jersey, because they always had some type of tea. But I didn't know that they also was talking about other shows and things of that nature. So on this episode, they were talking about Katie's future with Real Housewives of Orange County, and they also talked about Gretchen. When they were referencing Katie, they felt like Katie probably will get the Monica Garcia treatment by production and the staff. I don't agree. And the reason why I don't agree that she'll get the Monica Garcia treatment is because Katie was smart enough to strategically align herself with Tamra. Even though people think Tamra is Beelzebub and just a horrible person, Tamra works. Okay, Tamra has been in this game for 14 seasons, and Tamra will work on this show. She will argue with people. She will scream. She will cry, and she will drive the storyline forward. And for a lot of for production, that's all they want from the ladies, is to drive the story forward. And so Tamra was smart enough to adapt to this situation, and I think Katie is starting to realize, oh, this is how I need to play the game, and that's what she's doing with Tamra. Okay, and if Katie does these four things at the reunion, I definitely think the door is open for her. Whereas for Monica, Monica was up against 5 women. Okay. Her only ally going into the reunion was Mary, and Mary doesn't have that much pull on the show in order to like have your back at the reunion. On top of that, Mary be in her own world at them reunions, okay? Until someone speaks to her. So I knew that wasn't going to happen. But Whitney was straddling the fence until the majority, which was Meredith, Lisa, Angie, and Heather, said we not doing this. And then she went on over to their side. So Monica was not getting let back in. Whereas if Katie does these 4 things, I think they will probably bring her back. I will be surprised if they don't bring her back. But I think if she does these 4 things, she'll probably come back. Number 1, Katie has to be the best dressed on the reunion, because we know how this fan base works. If you got a pretty face and a cute smile and your body is tea, they will let things slide. Okay? So if she has to be best dressed at that reunion. Number 2, if she genuinely and sincerely apologizes to Shannon with no shade, no back talk, just owning what she did, Shannon will be on her side. Shannon will eventually just accept it and move forward, because people will start pointing out on the cast, well, how are you cool with Tamra? How are you able to make amends all those times with Tamra? And she did this one thing. Like, give her another chance. Number 3, if she really does present receipts that Gretchen and Slade have been peddling that story about Naked Wasted, on top of that she has text messages that Slade sent Matt about holding the line, she wins, okay? Because then it does prove that Gretchen was lying. It does not negate that she ran her mouth, but it does prove that, oh, Gretchen, you were point A and you caused all of this, okay? And the final thing is, if she can whack Emily, Gina, and Jen, and I mean really and honestly, all she has to whack is Gretchen and Emily and Gina, she'll be fine. She'll be fine, because she has Tamara on her side, and Tamara is ready to annihilate Emily when it comes to this reunion. And you know how I know that is because of what she said on her podcast. So let me play that clip.
Loyalty is everything. And I'm struggling this season with a particular cast member because, you know, I've always thought that we were on good terms, and I've done a lot of nice things for her, supported her. And then to see her like talk such mad shit about me on the show is very disappointing. It makes me to be like, you're dead to me. You're dead. Well, bye.
Is in trouble. Okay. At first, I thought this was about Heather, but then I was like, girl, no, because you can't say that Heather hasn't had your back. We've seen Heather have your back and stick up for you. But I feel like she's really pissed that Emily said what she said, because Emily now works for Tamara. Emily is now part of the whole like podcast, situation that Tamara and Teddy does. And I think that's really what's grinding Tamara's gears, is because she's like, I've been loyal to you. Like, I helped you out and all this stuff, and this is how you do me. So yeah, I think Emily better be prepared for Tamara to whack her. But that's all I got for you guys. So let's get into this review. All right, y'all. So let's get into this review. Clearly, it's a new day, a new shirt, and a new vibe. So let's get into it. So the episode opens up and we see Jen and Gretchen at this restaurant having a conversation, pretty much rehashing what happened at the tactical defense event that Gretchen threw. And they show us flashbacks of when Tamara was like, what do you know about me, girl? But she said the B word. And then when Gretchen was like, you don't want me to talk. And so Gretchen is pretty much trying to sidestep accountability. I know Gretchen apologized when they were at the event, but to me, you invalidate your apology when you're trying to blame everybody else around you, when you're the root cause of why this story was re-brought up on this show. Okay, because they show us the flashback when they're in the car, when it's Heather, Emily, and Gretchen, and you're talking about, hey, I want to go do karaoke and I hope they have my songs. And they were like, oh yeah, you did do music. And then you bring up that Tamara did music, and they're both like, Tamara did a song? When did she do that? And then you legit said, when she banged, and they bleeped out the 98 Degrees band member. So you brought this story to us. Nobody else did. So then she's sitting at the table pretty much saying that Emily and Heather were salivating, listening to, like, wanting to hear the audio. But you're the one that told them the story. If I heard my friend did a song and it was bad, I would want to hear it too. Side note before I keep going, Jen putting her purse on the ground offended me as a Black woman. Okay, because since I was a child, and I know many Black women since they were a child and they could carry a purse, they were taught that you do not put your purse on the ground. And the fact that she had that purse underneath her chair on the ground, I was so offended because I'm like, I get it, the table was small. And I feel like when your table is that small, there should probably be built in purse hooks, you know? But also, y'all could have pulled a chair from the bar to put your stuff there. But I just feel like you do not put your purse on the ground. And she said that Heather said something to the effect of like, that's why she don't have no money. And that's true. Because you do not put your purse on the ground. That's what I've always been taught. And I also feel like that makes it easier for someone to steal your bag because it's right underneath your table. And if the restaurant is really busy and bustling, like you wouldn't notice someone crouching down and snatching your stuff. So I was just like, yeah, put your purse behind you, girl. Like, what are we doing? But the conversation continues where they show us flashbacks of when Slade was telling Emily and Heather about like being able to hear Tamara and the guy doing it in the music audio. Then we have Gretchen being mad at Slade, talking about, I'm glad, like, not I'm glad, I'm upset that you brought this information up. And him being like, well, why, what you mad at me for? So then Gretchen ends up saying she doesn't like how aggressive and how like violent Tamara got. And I will have to agree. Tamara had no business in that lady's face. And honestly, if Gretchen wanted to dust her in the face with her fist, she had every right to. Even though I agree with why Tamara is upset and angry, like I would be mad too if we said we were going to be cool or not reignite stuff about each other and I didn't talk poorly about you on my trip. You were well within your right to be angry, but she had no business getting in that lady's face that way, to the point where Gretchen had to grab her wrist. That was out of pocket and out of line. And if Gretchen wanted to pop her, she was well within her right to. And had this been a different show like New Jersey, Miami, Potomac, or Atlanta, girl, you probably would have got mushed. Like a real, like palm to the face. So yeah, you was out of line. So then Jen ends up saying, I hate the fact that you're not coming to the event. We find out that Tamara, after storming out of the tactical defense building, she came right back in and pretty much told the girls that she's having a spring fling party and that everyone's invited except Gretchen because Gretchen don't know how to change. Now, I did giggle at that because I said, girl, what? And so Gretchen says she doesn't like the fact that Tamara did that, but she also doesn't really want to go to the party. So then Jen ends up saying, well, we need to invest our energy into other things because Tamara's never going to change. I'm going to be honest. Gretchen should have pivoted. I told y'all this before. Gretchen fumbled because all the cards were in her favor to come back and have a stellar season. But after the whole Katie situation, she should have shifted gears and stopped focusing on like Tamara. Because it's like, girl, you already had that situation with Katie. Then now it's all about Tamara. But you started off being about Tamara. When you guys decided to be cool or hug each other at Emily's the lie detector test thing, and then when y'all talked on the beach, you should have realized, let me move a different way. But you're so fixated on taking Tamara down, and then it doesn't help that you have a partner who's also hyper fixated on taking Tamara down, that both of y'all couldn't step back and reevaluate your situation. And I'm not saying Gretchen has to forgive Tamara or be cool with Tamara, but girl, be smarter about this. There was definitely a different way that you could have moved, and you moved poorly. Very poorly, okay? So then the scene shifts and we see Tamara at her house getting ready, putting up decorations for her spring fling party. We see Eddie pull up to the house and they're outside and he starts to help her with the patio decorations. He ends up asking her who's all invited to the party, and she's like, everybody. He was like, you even inviting Shannon? And she was like, yeah. We find out that Shannon ended up sending Tamara a text message about how she's been thinking about Teddy and sending like a couple of doctors to her. And so Tamara says, she felt like that was an olive branch from Shannon. I don't think it was. I just think Shannon was trying to be helpful. But Tamara's taking it as that. They then start talking about Gretchen because Tamara was talking about how her back hurts, and he was like, and Eddie's like, why is your back hurting? And she explains the whole prank. She was like, when the prank happened, I jumped all the way behind Gina and I hurt my back. And Eddie was like, that was a dumb prank. And she was like, of course. It came from Gretchen, so of course it was going to be dumb. So she also explains to Eddie how I got told this information from Emily, that supposedly Gretchen told Emily and Heather that I slept with so and so from 98 Degrees. And Eddie was like, she really said that? And he was like, yeah. And so then when I finally confronted her on it, I went off, and Tamara said it was like 12 years of FUs that I just released on her. And you could tell that that was built up like FUs from Tamara, because like we've seen Tamara be unhinged, but like the fact that she really got that close to her and she was in her face and she wanted her to feel how much she don't like her. And she was like, she was real angry. And it was just like, yeah, I could tell you was holding on to that. So the conversation with Tamara and Eddie continues, with Tamara pulling out her phone and basically showing Eddie a DM that she got from the alleged band member that they're saying that Tamara slept with, where the wife is pretty much showing Tamara that Jen followed her husband, and she also has it time stamped. And so Tamara's just like, why did Jen need to like follow this man? You're already dating someone that dresses like a boy band member from the 90s, and it's Ryan. Okay. So then as the conversation continues, you have Tamara telling Eddie that she felt some type of way about Heather because Emily revealed that Heather was the one that wanted to call Slade to listen to the song. And then we also find out that after Tamara stormed out of the tactical defense building, Heather went after her but told her, girl, you can't be grabbing and like pulling away from and getting in people's like space like that. You know, and she says, you know, I'm just hurt by her because why are you chasing after me, but you're not chastising Gretchen for what she did? But then, and you're asking Slade to play the audio. But Heather specifically said, I just want to hear the audio. I don't want to hear whatever y'all got going on over there. I'm not interested in that. But now Tamara is trying to take this standpoint that like nobody in the group supports her and she doesn't have friends. She even says, you know, I'm loyal to a fault, but Heather doesn't like, she doesn't like confrontation or things of that nature, but she was like, a friend to everyone isn't a friend to no one, but you're not a friend to anyone, Tamara. And honestly, I think it's a load of crap that Tamara's trying to act like Heather has not had her back when we've seen at the beginning of this season, Heather has actively been sticking up for Tamara, trying to get people to see her point of view, has been also saying like, give her a time, she's in therapy. And because you are mad that Heather didn't tell Gretchen she was wrong, and Heather told Gretchen, I don't want to hear that song. Okay, I want to hear the song of her singing. All of a sudden, Heather is not a good friend to you. Load of crap. A load of crap. We get these two scenes after Tamara and Eddie's scene where we transition to Heather and Shannon at this pottery class, and then we see Emily and Gina at this boutique trying to find outfits for Tamara's spring fling event. So we see Shannon get to the pottery place. She looks disheveled. She got on broken glasses. Heather makes a comment in her confessional where she was like, Shannon just can't never come somewhere and not be all the way put together. Like what? So we find out that they're doing this Japanese art form where you put together broken like statues or cutlery and things of that nature, and they're gonna put together this broken cup, but the glue that they use is like gold, so it's supposed to show that it's supposed to be that way. And the instructor explains that it's pretty much saying that we're adorning our scars, or basically showcasing that just because something is broken doesn't mean there's not value in it. So I thought that was actually really cool. So we see them break the cups. Mind you, Heather hit it too many times. They were only supposed to whack the cup once, and that was actually funny. We see Gina at this boutique where she's like returning this package, but also getting a new dress. And we then see Emily pull up. Emily is basically still tired from going to spend time with Heather and Gretchen at her place in LA. And Gina makes a comment where she's like, I can't believe Heather DeBro had y'all sleeping in the living room. I really do hope after this season, Heather realizes that Gina, specifically like both Gina and Emily, but more specifically Gina, is not her friend. Because at every turn, Gina takes a chance to like throw a dig at Heather. And it's like, you don't really like the lady. You're actually envious of like her lifestyle. And it's just like, dang, like let's not act like her spending $15,000 on canopy beds and embroidered what's it called, pajamas with their names on it is not a flex. So Emily basically says, no, it was nice, but Gretchen wouldn't show up. And they show us a flashback of Gretchen like constantly talking. That would annoy me too, especially if I'm tired. So Gina brings up how, you know, I know it was crazy watching Tamara and Gretchen rip each other's faces off. But my millennial heart was set ablaze because I knew who they were talking about. And I went to their concert, back in 2021. And they actually showed Gina a picture of Gina at the concert. So she was like, I was excited. Okay. I was definitely excited. So we go back to Heather and Shannon, where Shannon basically asked Heather, did y'all ever hear the audio? And Heather was like, no, we never heard it. So then Shannon is like, how do you moan while singing anyway? And Heather demonstrates, and it was actually really funny. Like, I was like, Heather. And that shows me that Heather could be a comedic actor because she's willing to go there and make a fun of herself. And honestly, them trying to say she can't be a comedic actor doesn't make sense to me, because there's definitely a lot of people who are not like funny in real life, but they know comedic timing and they know how to genuinely act in a movie and be funny. So that didn't make sense to me when they were trying to shade Heather. Well, not trying, they did shade her. So they laugh about it. We then hear Shannon talk about how, like, she just didn't like how aggressive Tamara got. And Heather says, yeah, I told her that wasn't okay. Like, I told her, when you start yelling and getting in people's faces and touching people, you lose the argument, which I agree with. So we go back to Gina and Emily, and Gina says the same thing. She was like, all that, like, that Tamara did too much for me. And she was like, I could tell that Heather didn't like it, and Heather didn't like all that aggression. And Emily was like, well, of course she didn't like all of it, because Heather doesn't like being confrontational. And she ends up saying that, while we were at Heather's place, we played this game. It was a shady game, and one of the questions was, who do you trust the least in the group? And without a beat, Heather said Tamara. Then she ended up asking me, would you give Tamara sensitive information? And I said no. Like, I definitely wouldn't give her sensitive information. And so I don't think Emily or Heather are wrong for voicing that. Where I fault them is doing that in front of Gretchen. That's that lady's op. If you are supposed to be Tamara's friends the way y'all say y'all are, you don't let the op know that her friends don't trust her. But I think it's valid for them to say that they don't trust Tamara. Tamara doesn't give you a reason to trust her. Her behavior shows that you cannot trust her. So it is what it is. Okay. So then it goes back to Shannon and Heather, where Shannon was like, when we were out in Temecula, Tamara basically told me that I hold grudges. And then Heather was like, to a certain extent, we all hold grudges, we all hold grudges. And I do agree. I think to a certain extent, everybody holds grudges. Like, everyone wants to get back the person that hurts them. It's just that when you mature, sometimes you just realize that it's not like you'll never see that person get theirs, but they're gonna get theirs, and you move on with your life. Okay. But I was like, yeah, everyone in this group holds grudges. So then Shannon takes this opportunity to tell Heather, that she also was making fun of you when we were talking about your acting career. And so Heather was like, what did she say? Like, what did you say and what did she say? Well, I told them that you were doing improv at the Groundlings, and then Gina says, you not this. Then she says you're not this, and so they just started saying that they don't see you being a comedic actor. So Heather is bothered by this because she was like, why do I always have to defend my acting career? And it goes all the way back to 2013 when Alexis Bellino was like, Angelina Jolie is an actress. Heather Dubrow, not so much. Then it goes back to season 18 where it was Tamara and Taylor making fun of Heather's IMBD credentials. And Heather's just like, I'm sick of having to defend myself in this group. If you guys are my friends, you should be sticking up for me, or you should just be supporting me. Like, why are we making fun of me? And I feel like they make fun of Heather because she has the money and because she's a snooty pants. They think she's a stick in the mud. So I don't want to say they take pride in making fun of her, but they don't think it's that big of a deal because she is the richest on the cast. And they're like, girl, you got all this money. You can take us poking at you. That's how I see it. The next scene we have is of Jen with her two boys going to the tattoo shop. Dawson wants to get a tattoo. He wants to get 7 sevens across his, not 7 sevens, 4 sevens across his chest. And she's there with Dawson and her oldest son, Harrison. So while they're sitting there, we find out that Dawson has always wanted to get tattoos. They actually show us a flashback of him at 9 years old talking about what tattoos he wants and things of that nature. And Jen is basically like, I know he's going to get it, so I might as well be here to support him with it so I know what it is. We end up hearing her ask Harrison, how do you feel about your brother joining the Marines? And Harrison says he's actually proud of him. And Jen was like, did you hear that? Did you hear that, Dawson? Like, your brother's actually proud of you. She ends up saying how, you're always talking about how Harrison is going to UFC, and then you have Garrison, who's also very, like, in the books and stuff. But now you have your own thing, which is the Marines. And so she says in her confessional that, like, I get why he wants to go, but I'm scared of him going. We then see Jen get really emotional because she was like, everyone tells me like he's gonna come back different, which he is. He is, after basic training. Oh, he gonna be different. And she also talks about how what he wants to do, I think, is like the reconnaissance team. And that's basically where people infiltrate like the enemy's territory, and you suss out like where the team is supposed to go. And I'm telling you, them the people that be getting got. Okay. So I can understand her fear, and like it's terrifying to know that your child is going to put themselves in harm's way, but she's also like proud of him and things of that nature. So she's getting emotional in the confessional, saying, I don't want him to change because he's perfect. Mind you, Dawson looks exactly like Jen. Out of all her children, even when she was paired up with her daughter, Dawson looks like the male version of Jen. And I was like, wow, like your husband did not help with that one, did he? So while he's getting the tattoo, Dawson is like sweating profusely, and I was like, that's not a good sign. And I'm someone who has tattoos. Y'all can see him and everything. And then next thing you know, the boy passed out, and I thought he was having a seizure, and I got scared. I said, "Oh my God, call 911, y'all! The little boy having a seizure." But they, hit him with some smelling salts. He was able to finish getting the tattoo, and I think 18 is a good age to get a tattoo. I got my first tattoo when I was 18, and my dad went with me and my sister. I still like my tattoo. It's on my back. But I do think I might want to get it covered up. But the reason why I still like it is my mom forced us to like write an essay as to why we want this tattoo and what it means to us. It was annoying as hell as a child, but I do appreciate her nowadays, because I will tell you, there was many opportunities where I could have gotten a tattoo. They were having tattoo parties at my high school. Mind you, I grew up in the suburbs of the South, okay, of Northern Virginia. And the stuff that I experienced in high school, wild. But yeah, they were having tattoo parties. I remember one girl, she got like a smiley face on her lip. And that's when I found out when you get tattoos in your lips, it fades away because of the saliva and things of that nature. This one guy, I think his ended up getting affected, but he got like a tattoo right here and stuff. I remember pulling up to that party, and I was like, look, I'm just here for vibes. I'm not trying to do nothing. I'm just here to vibe, eat some food, dance a little something, but I'm not here for no tattoo. And now that I'm an adult, I'm so glad that my parents instilled in me not to give in to peer pressure, because I think the person that was giving tattoos was one of their cousins who was an apprentice. I said, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. But yeah, there's that. The next thing we have is with Emily, Shane, and the boys, and her two twins. They end up ordering pizza. I think they specifically did not order a cheese pizza because they were trying to get Luke to, like, get over his eating situation. But he ends up saying, no, I want what I normally get, which is this white rice from Trader Joe's. Production ends up asking Emily, does he know the difference? And she was like, yeah, he does. He actually does know the difference. And she was like, and I was like, maybe because it probably tastes different to him. So we find out that both Kyler and Luke are going to therapy. Hopefully they might have group therapy together one day, because I like that they're going to individual therapy, but the way that Luke feels like, this is mine, when the other boy asks like, oh, what were y'all doing? And he said, oh, we did coloring books, like we colored a comic. And he was like, what kind of comic was it? Was it Mr. like Toilet Man or something like that? And Luke was like, that's none of your business, because it's mine. And I was like, yes, there should be individuality, but I hope them going to therapy doesn't like push them apart, because at the end of the day, they are brothers, they are siblings. So we end up finding out that Luke doesn't have autism, because Emily ran down the list of other stuff he got. Girl, the little boy got OCD, he has ADHD, dyslexia, and I think she said something else. And I was like, girl, that's a lot. That is a lot. Mind you, how do you not know your child can't read and he's in the 4th grade? What are you and Shane doing at that house? So Emily says that Shane has really stepped up as a parent after they went to therapy. He's a lot more warmer to Luke. Like, now that he realizes that he's not rewarding Luke's bad behavior, that actually being a lot gentler with him will help. But I'm still stuck on the fact that that little boy was in the 4th grade and didn't know how to read. That is crazy to me. And I went on the side of TikTok where parents are revealing that their kids are like in second and third grade, and teachers are even talking about how these children can't read. What are y'all doing? And I say this as a, child-free woman, but also I'm judging because I was a child as well. And I remember my mom made us do workbooks over the summer. Like, we legit had to sit down, and she would give us a certain number of pages, and we had to finish them before we went outside and played with our friends, or before we went to like day camp and stuff like that. So I'm not understanding how y'all are not reinforcing these ideas, and how you don't know your child can't read in the fourth grade. That is crazy, Emily. That's crazy. And you don't know he's dyslexic. So it is now time for Tamara's spring fling party, okay? And so we see her pulling out, the spread, the little pink carpet. There's a baker there. They're going to be decorating cakes, and I thought that was like a cute idea. Not Heather, but Tamara brings up, and there's no bows. Because if you remember, I don't know which season that was, but back in 2012, Heather went off on that girl who broke the bow off her cake and was pissed. And I felt like Heather had every right to be mad. Like, you have no home training. Because why? If you wanted a piece of cake and you were going to be messy like that, you should have went behind the cake. But you legit broke a piece off that lady's bow on her fondant cake. Like, that was disrespectful. Like, I'd have been pissed too. So Tamara's like, no bows. So we then end up seeing Gretchen, Slade, and their daughter taking pictures at the park. And Gretchen gets a phone call from what's her name? From Shannon. And she was just like, I just want to check up on you and see how you doing, because I don't think like what she did was okay, i.e. Tamara. And she was like, no, it's okay. It's okay. And then Gretchen says in her confessional, do you really think I want to go hang out with Tamara? Like, I'm fine taking pictures with my family. And she was just like, I just don't understand. Shannon says, I just don't understand why she had to take it there with you. Basically, Tamara would be in the right if she didn't get aggressive the way she did. And Shannon was like, even though me and Tamara are in a good place, I don't think what she did was okay. So in the confessional, Shannon basically says, Gretchen did apologize, but that's the difference between Tamara and Gretchen. Gretchen will apologize, but Tamara won't really like take accountability. But my thing about it is, Shannon, Gretchen's apology is invalid because she keeps trying to blame everybody else around her instead of just standing in the fact that she messed up. So the first person to pull up to the party is Emily. Emily comes into the house. She's like, oh, what are we doing today? And Tamara's like, oh, we're doing cake decorations. And she was like, oh, that's fun. And then she was like, me and you know about cakes. And they flashback to the season where they were throwing cakes at each other and things of that nature. So Emily is like, girl, we need to get a drink because we have to talk about Gretchen, because I just cannot believe that Miss Jesus was carrying on like this. And so Tamara goes and gets Emily a drink. And Emily was like, it's just kind of crazy that she is supposed to be a woman of God, but she was speaking the way that she was speaking. Also, girl, when we were going down to Heather's place for the slumber party, why was her and Slade and the child outside praying before she got into the car? And I was like, should I join the prayer circle? What should I do? Then Tamara says, people like that, they hide behind the Jesus curtain. And Tamara would know because we saw Tamara get baptized on this show and her behavior has gotten worse. So we know. But I will say, though, I do believe that Gretchen is extremely performative with the way that she practices her Christianity, or her version of Christianity, because you can't tell me that you are of God or a practicer of the word and you are a part of that red hat gang. Because the Lord ain't in you. Okay? So next thing you know, Emily is just like, I need to tell you something. And I was actually surprised that Emily volunteered this information about her and Heather saying that they don't trust Tamara. So she's like, we played this game at Heather's place, and the question, it was shady, is who do you trust the least in the group? And Heather said your name, and I agreed, and I said your name as well. Tamara's like, you said my name. And Emily was like, well, yeah, I'm always worried that we're going to get into an argument real bad, and then you're going to throw out information out there. So I don't really trust you with sensitive information. So in the confessional, Tamara was like, that's really hurtful and messed up. I've supported Emily. I've been there to her. I've been very loyal. And for her to not like trust me is crazy. So then Emily says in her confessional, Tamara is unpredictable, which she is. So she was like, I don't trust her. And she was like, I'm trying to have this real conversation with her. And yet, and still she is lashing out. So then Tamara sits there for a minute and she's just like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done. And so she grabs her glass and she storms off. And I felt bad for the baker that was there to help them, teach them how to decorate their cakes. She is just like, I'm just looking at my buttercream, trying to get my, you know, my custards together. She looked like, girl, this is a mess. A mess. So then Emily tells the baker, I know I hurt Tamara and I do need to apologize, but because this is her party and things of that nature, but I meant what I said, basically. So then Gina pulls up and she's like, oh, this is cute, we're decorating cakes. And then Emily's like, well, Tamara's mad at me, she stormed off. So Emily was like, that is not a good sign. The party hasn't even started and she's storming off. So next thing you know, Tamara comes down the steps. She's like pulling things out of her refrigerator and she has an attitude. And she hugs Gina and Emily's like, can we talk about this, Tamara? And Tamara's like, I'm not going to talk to you until I'm done. And so she comes back to Emily and Gina and she's just like, for you to say that you don't trust me, like, it's hurtful. Like, nobody in this group supports me. And Emily and Gina are looking at her like, girl, what are you lying? Like, what are you talking about? Emily is like, girl, I've been defending you to Gretchen and trying to bridge the gap between you guys and defending her to you. And Gina was like, girl, we've all been having your back and supporting you. So what are you talking about? So then Gina breaks up the scene where she's basically like, and to be honest, if you really did sleep with him, that's a flex for you. Talking about the band member. And then Tamara says, I didn't sleep with him. And if I wanted to, I could. Which is a crazy thing for her to say when she has been on her podcast saying that she was cool with the wife and the husband. So if I was the wife, I would feel disrespected why you think it's so easy for you to sleep with my man. What's up with you? What's good, The conversation continues with Tamara revealing to Gina and Emily that the screenshot information of Jen following the band member, and she actually printed out the DM she got from the band member's wife. So she is like going to reveal this to Jen. So then we see Jen pull up, and Jen is in her confessional saying that she hates playing pretend. But the truth of the matter is Jen needs a job, so she gonna play pretend because she needs this check. So you hear Gina and Emily being like, ooh, girl. Gina's like, oh, Tamara go get her. She got printouts. And Emily was like, well, she already pissed at me, so it is what it is. We then see Heather and Shannon pull up. They all decide to get food and go sit out on the patio. And they're all like, oh my God, you did such a good job, Tamara. Shannon brings up how, I remember walking out here and it was like a spooky event, and it flashes back to 2014 where they were all dressed up for a Halloween party. Heather had like this eye on her forehead. And then there was, I think it was Eddie that was dressed up in the wolf costume, scared Vicky, and Vicky was over it. So now the rest of the ladies are sitting out on the patio, and Tamara just says that like she was so hurt by Gretchen's behavior. Jim was like, yeah, girl, Gretchen was hurt as well. So then Tamara was like, well, Heather says Gretchen believes her own lies. And Heather's like, no, I said that Gretchen believes her truth is what reality is. Like, I never said that she believes her own lies. And so then Tamara was like, so you're saying she's sociopathic because if you believe your own, like, she believes her own lies. And technically, Heather, that is what you said. If she believes her own truth and doesn't reevaluate other people's perspective, then in a sense, she is believing a lie. So that's when Emily chimes in and she's like, well, that's like Katie. Katie believes her own lies, and they flash back to Katie in the beginning of the season where she lied and said that she did not contact the Bravo babe. And then a couple of days later, she ends up telling Tamara she did call the lady. So Tamara reveals that she's going to meet up with Katie. And Emily was like, are you serious? That pisses me off. And Tamara is like, girl, I don't care. Now that you revealed that you don't trust me, I'm going to do what I want to do. And she was like, well, I want to hear her out because I feel like some of the stuff that she gave me about Gretchen, I'm starting to feel like she might have a point. So in the confessional, Tamara is like, I'm starting to feel like Gretchen was lying to me and that she has been peddling this story around about me drugging her and things of that nature. So then Emily ends up pointing out like, girl, you're only going to meet up with Katie because now it fits your narrative against Gretchen. The same Katie who has hurt me and my kids, called Gina a racist, and recorded Shannon without her consent. And I said, well, she has a point. But again, Emily, you just told the lady you don't trust her, so she gonna do whatever she want now. So you then end up seeing Tamara get up and go inside the house because she's like, let's start baking cakes. And Emily's like, no, Tamara, sit back down so we can talk about this because this is pissing me off. And she was like, I get you're mad at me about the whole not trusting thing, but like, we need to talk about this. So then Heather's like, what the whole not trusting thing? And that's when Emily reveals that she was like, well, I told her that I don't trust her. And then Heather's like, well, we all said we don't trust her. And then that's when Shannon leans over where she was like, she can dishes, but she can't take it, which is true. So then you see Tamara in the house, in the kitchen with this like mean mug look on her face like, I can't stand them bitches. Like she has an attitude, okay? And so she's in her confessional. She was like, it's really hurtful that they don't trust me. Like, oh my gosh, like how could they not? So Heather gets up and she goes into the house and she's like, are you okay? And Tamara ends up saying, this will be the last time you ever, like I ever film. Heather's like, girl, okay. Okay. So then Tamara says, I'm really hurt by you, Heather. And Heather's like, girl, what did I do? What did I do? She was like, to say you don't trust me? And Heather's like, well, girl, I don't trust you with my feelings. And she was like, and she was like, and I've supported you? Like, how could you say those things? And Heather's like, and I've supported you. Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Heather's like, girl, I've been there for you. I've had your back to the detriment of myself. And so, and girl, and now you trying to tell me like I'm not a good friend and I hurt you. And then Heather brings up, and then I find out from Shannon that y'all are in Temecula, like admonishing and disrespecting my career. So then Shannon's like, oh crap, I'm about to get in trouble because she brought up my name. So then you end up hearing Heather's like, Gina, come up in here. So Gina comes up in here and she was like, well, I heard that y'all were talking poorly about my acting career. What's good? So then Gina was like, well, Heather, we don't know you to be a comedic actor. And she was like, it's acting, girl. It's acting. I've been in several sitcoms and things of that nature. And Gina was like, well, Heather, like I haven't watched those things. Then in the confessional, Gina's like, well, that stuff came out when I was in the 4th grade in 1994. So girl, that doesn't resonate with me. Like, I didn't watch it. So then next thing you know, Gina ends up saying, Heather, we know you don't like confrontation, but you're totally cool with being confrontational with me. And Heather's like, no, girl, I'm fine with confrontation. The baker lady is still sitting there, like, just sitting there like, girl, we gonna ice these cakes raw. Like, what is going on? And so Heather's in her confessional being like, I thought these people were supposed to be like my supportive friends who like are going to champion me while I do something that I haven't done in a long time. But no, I'm finding out that y'all are dogging me out. And then Gina's like, well, I don't know Heather to be funny. So then Emily comes in and Heather's like, y'all can make fun of me if I'm like for being an athlete because y'all know I'm not athletic, but my career is a no-go. So then they start arguing back and forth. Heather even stepped up to Gina like, girl, what's tea? Because she was like, I'm not afraid of confrontation. I said, come on, Heather. So then Heather's like, you know what? It's whatever. It's whatever. She was like, let's have a conversation outside. Let's have a conversation outside. So they go sit outside, and then you hear Jen say to Tamara, "Where I don't think she's funny." And then Tamara was like, "Well, let her hear you say that." Well, Shannon was like, "Well, I told her yesterday what y'all said, so it is what it is." So then Heather ends up saying, "Girl, I've devoted my life to my family, and I'm doing something for me. Like, it is scary. Like I'm out dealing with all this self-doubt and all these things of that nature. And I would want my friends to support me. Like what are y'all doing?" And then Heather reveals that she had to actually audition to get into the Groundlings. And pretty much I just feel like they hating on Heather. Like her and Emily and Gina and them, they do it a lot with Heather. So we actually get to see the finished products of their cakes. I think that Jen and Gina's cakes look the best to me. Gina's cake was like very clean and she just put a decoration at the top. But then Jen's cake, she put polka dots all around hers with pink and yellow yellow frosting. So I liked it. Emily's, Tamara's, Shannon's, and Heather's, they need to work on their work. Emily's and Tamara's was too cluttered. Heather's and Shannon's, I think they just needed to smooth out the icing around the cake, and I probably would have liked theirs better. So now that that's done, everybody is just like, walking around, like taking off their aprons and stuff. Some people are going to the bathroom. Tamara takes this time to actually ask Jen, like, girl, why did you follow the 98 Degrees band member? Jen looks kind of like irritated that she's asking her this. And then you end up seeing Tamara pull out the printout of the DM, and everyone's like, ooh, girl. So then Shannon's like, I gotta go to the bathroom. And then Heather's like, I gotta go to the bathroom too. So then Jen is like, is this like your gotcha moment? Like, why would you do this? But I'm also looking at Jen like, girl, you're being messy. You were being messy and you got caught. Because in your confessional, you actually admit that you followed the guy because you wanted to find out, or you were hoping he was going to slide you some information. So you got caught being messy and you're trying to flip it on Tamra, but this moment right here, Tamra got you, girl. So we end up seeing Shannon, Gina, and Heather, where Shannon was like, she got receipts. Like, what are we doing? And Heather was like, girl, I don't care. I'm going to the bathroom to pee. Get away from me. And so that's when Tamra pulls out the printout and she's like, girl, you followed him at like 5:25 p.m. And then Jenna's like, you know the date? And she was like, yeah, I know the date. She also goes on to say, Tamara's like, see, this is my thing. If we're supposed to be friends, why are you trying to be cool with people who are trying to harm me? It's the same thing with you becoming friends with Gretchen and now you're trying to message this guy or get information and stuff like that. Like, how can I trust you? And I was like, oh, that's rich coming from you, Tamara. So then the rest of the ladies are sitting out on the on the patio. Tamara is in the kitchen with an attitude. Jen ends up walking away from Tamara, being like, okay, girl, I'm over this. Like, she was like, you're never gonna change, but Jen, you're wrong. So they're sitting out on the patio, and then Heather was like, why did you follow the guy? Like, and Jen's like, well, I can follow anybody. But then Gina was like, but yeah, girl. And Emily's like, well, it's messy that you followed him. And she was like, but I wanted to follow him. Like, sue me for wanting to follow him, girl. They're like, but you were being messy. You're being messy. So then Heather gets up and she goes to check up on Tamra. Emily ends up saying, see, now that's weird to me. She says she don't trust her, but then you gonna go check up on her. Not trusting somebody and trying to make sure if someone's okay are not like, they don't go hand in hand. Like, that's still her friend to a certain extent. Like, I don't think it's wrong for her to go check up on her friend. So she's like, are you okay? And then she's like, no, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. So you then end up hearing Tamra again say, you know, I'm done. I'm not filming anymore. Then you hear Shannon say, you hear that, Gina? She not filming anymore. And Gina's like, oh my God, girl. So then Tamra was like, you really hurt me. You really hurt me. Like, you're supposed to be my friend, Heather. And Heather's like, I am your friend. She was like, but you said you don't trust me. And then that's when Heather reiterates, girl, I don't trust you with my feelings. She was like, girl, I told you about my dad. She was like, when you left New Orleans, I was the only person that went and checked up on you. And they show the flashback of Heather texting her, calling her, and you didn't text me back. She also was like, girl, Heather's like, and don't act like I haven't been there for you. And then Tamara was like, I was dealing with one of the toughest times of my life. Still trying to use Teddy's illness, but girl, it don't work like that. So then she was like, you know what? I'm done. So then Heather in her confessional basically says, anytime I try to share my feelings with Tamra, she shuts me down or she gets angry. And they show flashbacks of when Heather tried to talk to her about her dad and Tamra shuts her down. So then Productions ends up asking Tamra, have you ever given these women any reason not to trust you? Tamra just keeps saying, it hurts my feelings. Basically knowing in her mind she has given them reasons not to trust her. So I don't even know why we playing these games with Tamra. I don't even know that. So then Heather goes back onto the patio and she's just like, she mad. She talking about she quit and all this stuff. It is what it is. So then Shannon's like, I'm ready to go. And Heather's like, I'm ready to go too. So let's leave. So everyone's trying to get their stuff and get ready to leave. So then they're like, hey, do you want help cleaning this up? Because they still have the cakes on the kitchen counter on the island. And then next thing you know, Tamara starts to try to muster up some tears, talking about like, it really hurts me that y'all would say that I'm not a good friend and that I am not really great to y'all when I've been there for you. And so Heather's like, girl, you do stuff like this. You keep quitting. You lash out. You don't want to have conversations with people. And she was like, well, I'm going through the roughest time of my life. And I said, girl, I'd have been like, Tamara, if you don't get out of my face before I pop you. Okay. So she's stepping to Heather, getting all angry. And then Shannon, Jen, and Gina are out on the patio, and Shannon was like, why does she have to have such a visceral reaction to people saying that they don't trust her? Like, why does it have to be that? And then Gina was like, oh my God, this cookie is really good. Really good. And I'm not gonna lie, I started laughing when Shannon was like, it's a little dry though. And then Gina was like, it just need a little bit of milk. But I was like, girl, what? So then Tamara's like, you know what? I'm done. So then Heather was like, clearly you're really emotional and we're just gonna have to talk about this another time, but like it is what it is. So then the rest of the women just leave and Tamara storms up the steps. Girl, I'm just proud of Emily and more specifically Heather, because I've been telling y'all I hate this narrative of them trying to paint Heather of like she's afraid of Tamara, when we have seen Heather this season check Tamara for her behavior, tell her she's wrong, even tell her, like, try to like get her to understand, like, girl, you can't behave this way, and I have been there for you. And I love the fact that Tamara was trying her best to gaslight Heather and it wasn't working. Heather was like, girl, what are you talking about? I have been there for you. Like, don't play in my face like that. And like Tamara knows that. That's why Tamara is focusing all of her energy on Emily, because she knows Heather has been there for her this entire season. And even Emily. So I don't even know why she's trying to give Emily that much smoke. But that was the end of the episode. As always, remember to be bravely authentic. Definitely hop down in the comments below and subscribe. And I'm out, y'all. Deuces.